welcome in to the Blitz podcast. The time is upon us. Super Bowl 57 is coming to us on Sunday. It'll be a good time. I'm not even going to say my usual spiel, maybe a version of it, because it seems like the last, 3 times I've hopped on here, or we've hopped on here, I say, it's been a little hiatus, I don't know how to explain it. We're all going through shit right now. Tyler just got engaged. Jaden's school's really picking up. He's going to start making a few less podcast appearances, it seems like. But yeah, I've been busy out the ass as well. But yeah, as the off season rolls upon us, and I announced to the boys the other day because I didn't really know, I'm graduating in December, so shit is gonna start getting a lot easier for me as I roll down. But yeah, off season's coming up. But first, we got to get through the fucking Super Bowl, biggest game of the year. How hype are we on a scale from 1 to 10, my man?
It's first of all, congratulations on possibly graduating.
Thanks, man. Congratulations on getting fucking engaged.
I know, dude. Lots happened over the last couple months. Playoffs have, the playoffs have been good. I don't think they've been as good in years past. The Bengals game was obviously a crazy game. The Chargers Jags was a crazy game. The Vikings game, came down to the final possession as well. The Bills game, I guess, against the Dolphins was close, but other than that, man, it hasn't really been all that close. The Eagles won both their games convincingly. The Chiefs were in control against the Jags the whole time. The Bengals beat the Bills pretty bad. Ravens game, I know we've got a lot of Ravens listeners, and that real quick, that's what I find to be so crazy, because if the Ravens had won that game, they would have went to Kansas City. Maybe Lamar Jackson comes back. Who knows how all this unfolds if the Ravens don't try and extend that ball at the 2-yard line and Sam Hubbard returns at 99 yards. Obviously, that's how the playoffs go. But, yeah, it's just been a weird offseason, which, in my opinion, I think sets up for a really good Super Bowl. I think we're going to have an absolute classic in this Super Bowl. Both number one seeds. You correctly predicted this Super Bowl, so I will give you your kudos there for that. Then you see it with the line. The line's listed at Philly as a 1.5-point favorite, virtually a coin toss. I think it opened at 2.5. Within 8 minutes, it went from 2.5 Chiefs to 2.5 Eagles, and then it's kind of went back toward the middle. I'm hyped, man. I'm really hyped for this game. I think this is going to be, we're going to hop into some of the storylines, but, you look at the Chiefs side. Can they start to build this, keep this dynasty going? Are the Eagles going to be that new team? This is one of the best built teams in the entire league, maybe the best built team, top to bottom in the entire league. My fiance is obviously a huge Chiefs fan, being from Kansas City, so I hear about it all the time, but I'm absolutely going to be pulling for the Chiefs. Anybody that listens to our pod knows I'm an Eagles hater. I'm not stopping now. I can't stand Philly. I can't stand their fans, and I'm not wavering away from that. My heart's telling me one thing. Mine's telling me another. So that might be a little bit of preview of where I'm thinking with this game. But yeah, man, it's crazy. 57 seems like a lot of freaking Super Bowls. It's crazy that it feels like just yesterday it was Super Bowl 50 with the Broncos and Seahawks. And now here we are, 57. But yeah, amped, hyped, everything under the sun. And this is it, man. We've got 4 more quarters left in the season, 1 game of football left to decide it all. And it's going to be a hell of a game down in the Big Toaster.
Yeah, for sure. We're all hyped to watch as it comes up. And, blame me if you want to. I did have to look up what number Super Bowl it was because you're right, there have been so fucking many. And I'm going to graduate in December and still can't figure out what a Roman numeral stands for, no big deal.
The only time you use Roman numerals is with the Super Bowl, I feel. That's the only time that really comes into play. And look, man, when you get to be my age, which is 5 months from 30, they all just blend together. And it's like, Super Bowl 51 and Super Bowl 55, I can't really tell you the difference. And it's just how it gets. But I did actually just recently watch the 30 for 30 Bullies of Baltimore on the 2000 Ravens. Really good 30 for 30. Definitely would advise watching that. But, that was 23 years ago, which is crazy to think about. And I remember that like it was nothing. And that was Super Bowl 34. So, it's crazy how time flies, especially when you get older, man. They just all meld together.
Yeah, for sure. Dude, I have to watch that Bullies of Baltimore. I just saw that they came out. It feels like there was no advertising for it whatsoever. But Yeah.
Great tribute for Tony Saragusa. He passed away, and they had a really nice tribute for him, and it was definitely centered a little bit around him. But man, that defense was just incredible. Which, we're looking at these two teams. I know that Philly, would they get 70 sacks? I think this year led the league in sacks, but these are two high-powered offenses, and I'm hoping we see some points in this game.
Hell yeah, man. All right. Well, without further ado, let's break it down a little deeper analysis for you. And to start, we'll do a little tail of the tape with the history of the matchups. And you got two head coaches here on two very opposite sides of the spectrum. Andy Reid, it's been in the game a long time. He's been a successful head coach for a long time, especially in Kansas City, obviously in Philadelphia in his prime years. But he moves on to KC, and now this is a revenge game. There are so many storylines in this game, dude. I even forgot about that until just now. That he used to coach the Eagles, primarily. And it's just insane how many storylines.
Oh, they ran him out of town, typical Philly fashion. They did it to him. They did it to Dougie P. It's like, you get to the Super Bowl or you win us the Super Bowl, you're gone. So Sirianni better be watching his back at all times now after this Super Bowl over the next couple of years.
I know, dude. But you can't really have a hotter start than Nick Sirianni has in his first 2 years of head coach. For Philadelphia, he has a 23-11 regular season record. The season prior to him coming in, the Eagles were 4-11 with Doug Peterson, but yeah, they ran him out of town after he had a successful track record previously. But Nick Sirianni seems like he's working out that whole mentality of we've got the seeds growing underneath the soil or whatever the fuck he was trying to say when he first got in. It seems like that's finally coming to fruition. And he made it to a fucking Super Bowl. So that's awesome. But like I said, these are two guys totally opposite ends of the spectrum. Andy Reid, very successful coach. He's been to the Super Bowl 3 times, but has only come out on top once. Which, I guess I just needed a reminder of that, which I thought that was kind of crazy. But yeah.
Yeah, but the championship games that he's been to is ridiculous. I think he went to 4 straight with Philly. This was his hosted 5th straight game for Kansas City, 5th straight AFC championship game they've hosted. So yeah, he's been to 9 or 10 championship games, I guess you can say.
Where would you put Andy Reid as far as best coaches of all time?
This is going to be a theme for me with the Chiefs, at least, is legacy, because this is kind of what this game is, not only for him, but also for Mahomes, also for Kelsey. If he wins this game, I think he goes down, right. He's not going to be up there with Belichick and Walsh. And I'm trying to think Dallas's coach. I'm blanking on Dallas's coach during the 90s, and I'm blanking on
Jimmy Johnson.
No, not it was before Jimmy Johnson. Oh, I can't think of it. Jimmy Johnson was there, and then there was somebody else before. But anyways, and then Steelers coach as well. That blanking on his name as well. Obviously, haven't been in the total football mindset, but yeah, I think he's in there. Top five coach all time. I think he's definitely up there. I don't think he, like I said, scratches that surface with Walsh and Belichick, but he's right there with everybody else.
Yeah, for sure. And he's got probably 10 years of coaching left in him, maybe something like that. I don't know.
Yeah, he looks as good as he could look, right?
he looks the same that he has over the past fucking 15 years. He's the same guy coming in every single year. Seems like
Chuck Noll is who I was thinking of that won all the Super Bowls with Bradshaw and all. But yeah, no. Nonetheless, I think that if he wins this, he's top 5. If he loses, I think he's still top 10. But I don't think he cracks that top 5 yet.
Yeah, I would probably put him in the top 5 definitely if he wins this game. That puts him at 4 Super Bowl appearances, 2 wins. That's phenomenal. But not to mention, as I already said, the history between Andy Reid and the Eagles. There is also some history between Nick Sirianni and the Chiefs, because he worked there for several years before Andy Reid was brought in 2012, and he fired Nick Sirianni upon arriving. And Nick Sirianni, all this week and all these past couple weeks, he's been talking very highly of Andy Reid, how much he inspired him to become this great coach, yada, yada, yada. But I gotta think that they're just knowing the guy that Nick Sirianni is, there's got to be the biggest chip on his shoulder of all time going into this game. So not that he.
I mean, you have to find ways to motivate you. Any little tidbit that you can find to motivate you, you're going to use, especially at this level in this game. So if you can play that card, absolutely, why not play it? But if Andy Reid's like, hey, this is a team that basically fired me too, so I can play that card as well.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. There's so many storylines in this game. We probably won't talk about it too much, but the Kelsey Bowl, obviously, that's a big thing.
Oh yeah. Everybody's been talking about that, First Brothers matching up in the Super Bowl. And obviously, the year that their podcast comes out, New Heights podcast, haven't listened to it.
Ooh.
Definitely give it a listen. It's awesome. But yeah, I think that's the heightened storyline is the Kelsey brothers, because they're both very boisterous and they're both the heart and souls of their team, I feel. So and that's why they're so good at what they do. I think both end up being Hall of Famers when it's all said and done, and that's the other reason why this is such a marquee matchup as well.
I wouldn't be surprised if both retire, no matter the outcome of the game. Like, I wouldn't be surprised. They play in a Super Bowl together as brothers against each other. I don't think there's any other way to write up a better storybook ending. So I see them both.
Is that what the script says? Is that what that's going
to say? Maybe we got some NFL Network people listening in, raising some eyebrows.
Rich Eisen's like, ooh, I think we might have something here.
They're on to something, man, over at that Blitz podcast. But yeah, so all right, let's dive away from the coaches for a little bit, and I'm gonna do some rambling on some of the regular season ranks from these two teams. So this is on a yards per game basis, by the way. But on the offensive side, on the passing offensive side, obviously Kansas City with the most likely to be named MVP tonight, Patrick Mahomes leading the helm. They finished first in passing offense. Philly finished 9th. In rushing offense, KC finished 20th as they struggled to find really the guy that was going to take over. Pacheco really looked like it was going to be him for a while, but he didn't really take the reins in that backfield like we expected. So they're still lagging behind. But Philadelphia finished 5th, obviously a very powerful rushing attack. And these offenses are two electric powerhouses, man. KC finished 1st in total offense. Philly finished 3rd. Now, on the defensive side, Philly stacks up much better. As far as passing defense, KC ranked 18th, which is getting towards the bottom of the barrel, and Philly finished 1st. So this is the best passing offense going up against the best passing defense. So that should be great to watch. As far as rushing defense goes, KC actually had a step up. They finished 8th in the regular season, while Philly finished 17th. But in total, the defenses both ranked towards the top of the pack. KC finished 11th, but Philadelphia finished 2nd. So that's kind of the ranks, how we see it going as far as if we're taking some stats from the regular season. But what are we looking to watch in this game, man? I'll hand it over to you, Tyler.
The Eagles' defensive line is arguably the best in football. And their offensive line is arguably the best. Kelsey and Lane Johnson, Mailata, they're just in the trenches, top to bottom, probably the best in the trenches, just alone. They're the best group. The one thing I do look at is the quarterbacks that Philly has faced this year. And we talked about this in the regular season. I know the only person to beat Jalen Hurts this year was Taylor Heineke. Give you a little bit of a shout out there. But outside of that, they faced Dak Prescott, they faced Aaron Rodgers, and they faced Kirk Cousins. I mean, maybe Jared Goff, but Jared Goff put up 35 points on them in week 1, if you really want to look at that. Yeah, they faced Kyler. But outside of that, like the Colts, the Titans, Justin Fields, the Saints, whoever the hell was playing quarterback for them that game. That's where I see the Chiefs having advantage, because they haven't faced a quarterback like this. They didn't face any Joe Burrow or Josh Allen or Justin Herbert or Lamar Jackson or any of those types of quarterbacks. So that's really where I see the Chiefs having a little bit of an advantage, is at the quarterback position. The other thing is on the other side of the ball, with the Eagles and their quarterback situation, Jalen Hurts has had a year to remember. I mean, if this guy doesn't get hurt, he probably wins MVP if we're really being honest. The last time Jalen Hurts was on a stage like this, he got benched for Tua in the national championship game when he was with Alabama. Mm-hmm. And then he went to Oklahoma after that. So I wonder how he's going to fare kind of on his first big stage, Sirianni's first big stage. Yes, those Eagles have a lot of players, not a lot, but some of those players returning from that team that won it all, like Fletcher Cox and Jason Kelsey and Lane Johnson and guys like that. But there's a lot of new pieces with this team where I feel like the Chiefs nucleus has been there through all of this over the last 5 years or so. Patrick Mahomes, Chris Jones, Travis Kelsey, Frank Clark. Yes, they've added some new pieces as well. Obviously, you have to. But for the most part, those guys have been there. And another guy that's been there, and you hinted about the running back room that's coming back, is Clyde Edwards-Helaire. And I'm going to hint right now, that is one of the props I like, is anytime Clyde Edwards-Helaire touchdown at 10-1, plus 1,000. You put $10, you win 100. I think that he's going to get a touchdown. I think that it could be really sneaky for Andy Reid to use him. And why not? Leave it all out on the field. I could also see, this is going to sound really weird, there's a prop for it. I could see a quarterback catching a touchdown. I could see, I don't know if it's going to be a Philly special action, but I could absolutely see a quarterback catching a touchdown in this game. These are two very offensive-minded coaches, and that they're going to pull out all the tricks that they can in this game. Those are a couple of things that I'm watching for, but I would say predominantly, the headline is going to be Mahomes against this defense that has been so good, that has racked up so many sacks. Can the Chiefs offensive line hold up? And can the Chiefs receivers get some separation? Mecole Hardman is out in this game. Juju should be back. MVS is there. Tony is limited, so who the hell knows what we're going to get from him. We talk about that week in and week out with him being on the injury report. Justin Watson will be back, but Travis Kelsey is going to have to be the man. I think Travis Kelsey, another prop I like, Kelsey to score 2 touchdowns is plus 475. I really like that one as well. So, I think that's the matchup that I'm really going to be watching, because you got to imagine that this Chiefs offensive line is going to be able to neutralize the Chiefs pass rush, with Chris Jones, Frank Clark, and Karlaftis and guys of that nature. So it's going to be dependent on these Chiefs corners in this secondary to shut down Devontae Smith and A.J. Brown, who really and truly, neither one has had that good of a postseason, if we're being honest. It's been more of the run game. So if the Chiefs can shut down the run game, can Jalen Hurts propel this team to victory? Can he throw them to victory? And that's the other question on that side of the ball. So it's, the best of the best with Patrick Mahomes going up against this Eagles defense. And then it's the more underlying story of Jalen Hurts' first big game since the national championship, second-year head coach against the Chiefs defense, which, like you said, hasn't been great. Chiefs play in the AFC. They faced a lot of these really good quarterbacks. They've faced Burrow twice this year. They faced Allen twice this year. They faced Herbert twice this year. They've seen these guys all year long, where the Chiefs haven't. So I wonder how that's going to factor into this. I think at the end of the day, it is going to be a pretty high-scoring game, and I think these offenses are going to flourish. But those are the two things to really watch out on both ends of the spectrum.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with you. Hurts will definitely be somebody to watch in this game. Like, can he, if the Chiefs end up getting, Kelsey gets those 2 touchdowns early, they end up down 14-0, and with the Eagles' play style, it's a slow and grinded out game with their run game, So if they're down 2 scores early, Jalen Hurts is going to have to throw them back in the game. And it's really a question right now as if he can do that, because as exciting as it was to have him come back and secure the number 1 seed in the last week and lead them to 2 wins so far to get them to the Super Bowl, Hurts is not 100%, man. Like, that shoulder injury.
Well, he hasn't had a game where he's been, like, game on the line, like, what are you going to do? He hasn't had those pressure-packed situations, whereas the Chiefs have.
Yeah, but, like, in the game, especially that Week 18 game against the Giants, like, this is a conservative passing offense in comparison to what we saw earlier this year. And it has been a conservative passing offense so far in the playoffs. To your point, they haven't had to throw the ball. So why not? You have one of the best, if not the best, rush attack in the NFL. So rock with that. But, I mean, like I said, if they get down 2 scores, I don't know if Jalen Hurts can come back and win this game with his arm. Like, he made a comment last Tuesday that his shoulder is still very clearly a thing. Like, it is still causing him problems. And I guess I'll kind of wrap this point into a prop, too, my one prop, which is Jalen Hurts under 238.5 passing yards, because he is still dealing with that shoulder injury. And since suffering the injury, He has yet to hit over that 238.5 yards mark. And the most since his injury was 229 yards in the last week against the Giants, which was a win game to end the regular season. And he has yet to break 154 yards passing in the playoffs so far. So all these signs point to.
So you've got his shoulder on one end, and you've got Mahomes' ankle on the other end.
Exactly. Who would you say you're more concerned about injury-wise, Patrick Mahomes or Jalen Hurts?
Injury-wise, I mean, I would probably say Mahomes just because it's more recent, but I trust Mahomes a lot more to deal with an injury than I do with Hurts. And it's not to say that I don't trust Hurts with an injury. It's just I haven't seen enough of him for me to have trust in him with an injury. We saw what Mahomes did on a bummed ankle against the Bengals, still threw for over 300 yards, got that rush, and obviously the late hit by Osai put them in a field goal range. But he propelled his team to a victory when he was hobbled and not at his best, and with all his freaking receivers getting hurt. I mean, they had Miko get hurt that game. Juju got hurt that game. I'm trying to think of who. Watson was out of that game. Tony got hurt that game. Like, their whole receiving core was depleted, and he still propelled them to victory. Yes, go ahead, say there were some questionable calls. Don't disagree with it. But still, you got to give the dude credit where credit's due. And he has shown that if he is hampered, that he can propel his team to victory. And that's where it comes down to, like I said, with this being a close game, can Hurts win it with his arm? We don't know. We haven't seen it yet.
Yeah, so he'll have to prove it. And even despite the injury, he's only broke that over 238.5, which is not a spectacular over as far as passing yards. He's only broken that over twice since the loss to the Commanders in Week 10. That's pretty bad.
Wow.
So, he had a really hot start to the year as far as passing, and his rushing and the team's success carried him through his MVP campaign to kind of end the year until he got injured. But, he hasn't been as spectacular through the air as we're all led to believe. And also, something to watch in this game, I think, is Jalen Hurts on the ground because of all this shoulder stuff we got going on. We've seen Jalen Hurts a little bit more involved in the run game, a little bit more conservative on the ground, and the Chiefs have allowed the 5th most rushing yards to quarterbacks in the regular season. So that could be something that Sirianni looks to take advantage of. But you gotta think that the Chiefs are ready for that. They know that Hurts has a shoulder injury, and they know they're going to try to run him more. So we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, they're gonna try and make Jalen Hurts beat him with his arm, which is exactly that's the game plan I would draw up if I'm the Chiefs.
Yeah, no, for sure. But for that reason, I like Hurts under 238.5 passing yards. Do you have any other props you want to throw out for this game, man?
Yeah, I can go over the props that I like right now. Kenny Gainwell, over 11.5 receiving yards. Really like this coming out of the backfield. I think there's going to be some dump-off opportunities for him. And 11.5 is one screen pass can get you that. I really, really like that. That's probably my most favorite one. I like over 25 completions for Mahomes. I do feel like the Eagles are going to put up points, which is going to mean the Chiefs are going to have to pass to say in this. I know the Chiefs want to establish a run because teams that can establish a run have been able to do pretty well against the Eagles. Look at the Commanders. So I do think that they're going to try to establish a run, but it can only be for so long. I went over Kelsey TDs. I alluded to it. I think this is going to be a nail-biter type of game. I think this is going to be a classic. I think it's going to come down to the very end. Overtime at plus 1,100, 11-1 odds. I like that. I think that this game does have a chance of going into overtime. And 11-1 odds, $10 wins you 110. Another thing that I like at 11-1 odds, each team to score a touchdown and a field goal in each half. So each team has to have at least 10 points in each half. So 11-1 odds, once again, 10 to win 110 type of deal. Really crazy odds. Yellow Gatorade. I like this. Plus 155 as the Gatorade color. It is the favorite, but it's the favorite for a reason. It's overwhelming favorite. I think the next is like red or blue at plus 450 or plus 500. Both of these teams last time they won the Super Bowl had yellow Gatorade. I think the Eagles dumped yellow Gatorade during the NFC Championship. I like yellow. I'm riding the yellow. And then finally, if you can find it, over 1.5 TikToks for Jackson Mahomes.
Ooh.
Yes, we're rolling with it. If you can find it, take it, because you know this fool is going to put out as much social media as he can. He's been quiet this year. We haven't really heard much of Jackson Mahomes. This is his opportunity to take center stage.
Dude, did you see the videos that his wife put on her Instagram story? Like, all those haters that counted out. Like,
oh,
I can't.
That's the thing that aggravates me. Like, I lived in Kansas City, so I got to see the one side, with everybody loving Mahomes and always supporting Mahomes, but even they talk so much shit about Brittany and Jackson. And that's the thing, that no matter what happens with his entire career, it's always going to be that. And that's the reason why people don't like Mahomes, not because of him, but because of his family. And I think it's so screwed up, because this guy is fucking good and we need to recognize it. And instead we're just harping on the negative, which is what we do as a society.
If he wins MVP, wins the Super Bowl, and gets Super Bowl MVP, I think we can start to forget a little bit about his family ties.
Speaking of that, that's a very good point you brought up, because if you think the Chiefs are going to win, take Patrick Mahomes to win MVP. He's plus 130. You get better odds than their plus 105 money line. And if the Chiefs win, do you think Mahomes is not going to get MVP? Like, unless something crazy goes wrong, like, he has to win MVP if the Chiefs are going to win the Super Bowl.
Damian Williams?
Maybe Kelsey.
Didn't Damian Williams win the MVP when they beat the 49ers?
And I think Mahomes won. I'll look it up real quick. But yeah, that's pretty much all that I have for my props. It's, like I said, about 6 or 7 that I really like. Don't know if I'll play them all. But those are the ones that I'm leaning toward right now.
I could definitely see Yellow Gatorade for sure, because I feel like
It was Mahomes.
Oh, really? He won Super Bowl MVP?
Mahomes won it. Mm-hmm.
I could have sworn, because like it was a big.
I think like 9 of the last 12 Super Bowls or something like that, the MVP has gone to the quarterback. The only ones was Julian Edelman in that 13-3 terrible Super Bowl with the Rams and the Patriots. Cooper Kupp won it last year. Should have been Aaron Donald. And Malcolm Smith won when the Seahawks obliterated the Broncos.
Yeah. Right. All right. Well, we got our props in, so I think it's just about time to make our official picks for Super Bowl 57. What do you say?
You want to take the reins first?
Sure, man. Sure. Like, I agree totally with what you're saying. Like, my head says one thing, my heart says another, because Jaden said it in the chat the other day. And honestly, it's the same reason why when the Patriots were down 27-0 in the Super Bowl and they started coming back, and was it 27? Oh,
28-3.
Okay.
28-3.
28-3. Yeah, you're right.
Falcons. Any Falcons listeners out there, I'm sure, can vouch for me on that.
Yeah, they're screaming the score at me right now. But yeah, like
28-3, and then 34-28 is what it ended.
That's a bad beat, the worst beat of all time in football history. But
considering you want to talk about it from a spread perspective, the Falcons were plus 3.5 in that game. So if the Patriots win in overtime and kick a field goal, if you have Falcons, you cover. But because they scored a touchdown, you lost, which is terrible, terrible beat. Absolutely.
Oh, that's disgusting. Let's not remind our small fandom of Falcons fans of that out there. But what I was saying is when the Patriots were coming back, my dad was like, "Oh, fuck this. Like, I want to turn it off. Like, I want to see greatness, man. Like, this is never going to happen again. Like, this is we're watching history unfold in front of our eyes. And I want the dynasty, man. I want the Chiefs to win. Like, I want Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs. It's hard to believe that they only have one Super Bowl under their belt so far. You know?
Hosting 5 straight AFC championships. That's why this game is so, like I said, from a legacy perspective, because if he loses this, they're 1-2 in Super Bowls, I think, and 2-3 in the championships. Like, it's not great. Now, if he loses this, at this point in his career, I think if he were to retire, he'd still probably be in the Hall of Fame. It would be a question. But if he wins this, I think he's no doubt in the Hall of Fame no matter what happens the rest of his career.
No, I agree for sure. But with that being said, God, maybe I'm going to flip-flop here last minute because all the shit I've been talking about hurts. Yeah, that's what I'm going to do. 70% of the money is on the Eagles right now. That doesn't feel right. I think the script is telling us that the Chiefs are going to form the dynasty here officially, and they're going to roll to another 3, 4 Super Bowls after this. But yeah, I think another one comes on Sunday night in Super Bowl 57. So I will take the Chiefs on the spread and the money line in this game. What you got?
Yeah, I got the same. It obviously, like I said, my mind is telling me the Eagles and my heart's telling me the Chiefs, but sometimes you just got to go with your heart. Sometimes you just got to go with your gut. And this, ever since I went to Mahomes's charity foundation event, got to meet him and Kelsey and Valdez Scantling, Juju, they haven't lost since I went to that event. And that was the Tuesday after they lost to the Bengals. And I feel like something just clicked in for them where they're like, we're not losing anymore. This is our Super Bowl to lose, not ours to. This is ours to lose. If they play how they're supposed to play, they can win. Just put the game on Patrick Mahomes' back and let him work his magic. That's all you got to do. Don't make any dumb plays on defense. Don't give up dumb pass interference calls for a ball that's 20 yards underthrown. Do what you got to do. Play smart football, and the Chiefs will win this game. My score prediction: Chiefs 30, Eagles 27 in overtime.
Ooh, okay. All right.
So I like the over. I like the over in this game, which is 51.5. I like the Chiefs, and then yeah, like I said, I think it could be an absolute gem of a game.
I'm gonna go a little bit of a blowout. A little bit. 27-14 Chiefs. Because I'm really gonna stick with the narrative that Chiefs are gonna go up 14-0 early, and the Eagles. Everybody's got a plan until you get punched in the mouth, man. Like they're not. It's gonna shock them.
Like the 49ers. 49ers had their plan until Josh Johnson came in at quarterback and Christian McCaffrey.
Yep. And who knows?
Real quick, did you see they asked Debo like his thoughts and who he thinks he's going to win, and he just didn't respond. He just sat there in silence. And I was like, yeah, like I don't blame him. I'd be pissed off too. The fact that the script told you that you're going to have Christian McCaffrey in at quarterback for the NFC Championship game. Like, it's just bad way for their season to end the way it did. And I'm not saying that the 49ers would have beat the Eagles, but I wanted to see a healthy Purdy, try and see what he could do on that stage. And, Eagles probably end up still winning the game, but it still would have been, I would have liked to have seen that.
I saw Bosa, the interview with Bosa, where it was like, are you looking forward to watching the matchup between two great quarterbacks, yada, yada. He's like, yeah, it'll be a really entertaining matchup that I won't be watching. So why would you watch that?
Yeah, 49ers fans are taking it to heart, which 49ers might win it all next year.
I would not be shocked at all. They just confirmed.
They're going to come out with a vengeance, I think, next year, and they're going to be ready to kick some ass. Because that was what, 2 straight NFC Championship games that they lost?
Yeah, they're going to be pissed, and one of them was the Chiefs. So next year, maybe we get a 49ers-Chiefs rematch. Super Bowl. Who knows? But yeah, I think that does it for our predictions for Super Bowl 57 coming up this Sunday. It'll be a barn burner, and we're all looking forward to it. So put those props in that you got. We gave out probably like a list of 10 tonight. So maybe you do.
Yeah, about 10.
So like maybe go on Prize Picks, do 3 3-leg parlays. You could do 5 2-leg parlays, whatever you're feeling, man. Or you can just do 1 10-leg parlay and win $10,000 or something. So
there you go. Or if you really want to get saucy with it, if you watch golf at all, the Waste Management Open. I talked about this in September. The Waste Management Open is in Scottsdale. The Super Bowl is in Phoenix, and it's all happening this weekend. So if you wanted to take somebody to win that and parlay it with something else in the Super Bowl, you could do that just to have a little bit of fun. The other thing, I mentioned it week 1 to one of our friends in Kansas City. Are the Chiefs going to start the season where they end, or are they going to end the season where they started it? And the answer is yes. Their first game of the year was against Arizona, where they blew out the Cardinals week 1. And sure enough, they're back in the big toaster for the big game. And we'll see if it ends with a victory like it did in week 1.
Yeah, for sure. Can't wait to watch that. I believe coverage starts around 6. So, yeah, get your kegs ready. Get your whatever.
Apps, get all your apps, your buff chick dips, your sliders.
Yes, I was just about to say buffalo chicken.
Everything ready to go.
It'll be a good time. But yeah, so let's move on from the Super Bowl preview. And it's been a minute since we hopped on. So let's talk about some of the big offseason moves that we've seen so far. And really, the majority of it is coaching hires. Won't take us too long to run through these, but we do have to recap some of the shit that has happened in the past couple weeks because it's definitely notable for sure. So,
well, and not all of our listeners are Chiefs and Eagles fans, so some things have happened to some of the other 30 teams that are in the NFL. Some things have been happening.
That's facts. That's facts, man. I wish something happened to my head coach, but it is what it is. We move along, keep on trucking. But let's be happy for these teams that seem to got new, fresh faces in their building. So, list of notable hires here. For our audio listeners, I'll go ahead and read it out for you. Sean Payton is the biggest one so far, for sure. Ended up getting traded from the Saints to the Broncos because he was technically under contract with the Saints. But he ends up going to the Broncos as he's the new head coach there to lead Russell Wilson, hopefully into stardom next year. But we'll see how that goes. As I go down the list here, D'Amico Ryans, 49ers defensive coordinator, highly touted, highly sought after for a lot of positions. He excuse me, he ends up going to the Texans, who he used to play for actually, which I didn't know. I saw J.J. Watt post a picture of him and D'Amico together, so I guess D'Amico wants to go there and reignite the fire that him and J.J. used to have there, which would be fun to watch. Frank Reich ended up going to the Panthers as their new head coach. This is one I did not see coming, to be honest with you. Like, I feel like Frank Reich was probably going to get an OC job somewhere, be a quarterback whisperer. Yeah, I just didn't really see this coming at all.
I thought the Panthers would make a bigger splash. I know Jaden and Mitch were both on board with the Frank Reich hire, and they really liked it. I know a lot of my friends that are Panthers fans that live in the Charlotte area or from the Charlotte area are not very happy with it. They're like, we're taking over a guy that did terrible, with his stint with the Colts. Now, I will say he didn't really have a quarterback there, but he doesn't really have a quarterback in Carolina right now either. Maybe they go and get somebody in the draft like your own Kentucky Wildcat, Mr. Will Levis. Maybe they go out and get C.J. Stroud. Maybe they take a shot on AR-15, Anthony Richardson. So maybe they do get their quarterback, but as of right now, Frank Reich is going into an eerily similar situation that he had while he was in Indianapolis, which is playing musical chairs with your quarterback.
Yep, for sure. And we can't really give we can't really say that Frank Reich is blame free for last year because he definitely had a lot of say in bringing Matt Ryan in. And
absolutely,
he made decisions.
And Carson Wentz. And Phillip Rivers.
Because this is the guy.
Those were all his guys.
Like this is the guy who was the quarterback whisperer for Carson Wentz when he was starting to turn into an MVP before he got injured. So, it was assumed.
Now I can't hate on the guy too much because he is a former Maryland Terrapin. Shout out Terps.
I did not know that. But wow, let's go, man.
Oh yeah,
let's go.
Oh yeah, yep. And he actually led the largest comeback in NFL. Well, second largest comeback up until this year. Shout out Vikings over the Colts, funny enough. But he led the largest comeback before that by 32 points against the Oilers when he was with the Bills.
Wow, that's crazy. You know who else is a former Maryland Terrapin, or at least a coach? Bill O'Brien. He started his career as a running backs coach for Maryland, which I was looking into. I was looking up all these names earlier.
Yep, I forgot that he did.
It's wild. But Terps connections all around the league, including former quarterback Frank Reich, who hopefully is... God, I just don't understand it at all. But let's move on. Kellen Moore, he ends up going to the Chargers as they hold on to Brandon Staley as their head coach. I have been very clear this entire time that Brandon Staley, I don't believe in him at all. This team should have already been in at least one Super Bowl with Justin Herbert, the level that he's playing at. We had this team as a top 3 team going into the year, and they didn't even make the playoffs. Or they did, and they lost to the fucking...
Yeah, one of the largest, up 27-0 on the Jags and blew that lead. Sorry about that, Mitch. But, yeah, it's a lateral move for Kellen Moore. And, this is something that we talked about on the pod where guys need to start, they have to take advantage of when the seat's hot. We see it in a political world where when guys have the opportunity to become a top-tier presidential candidate, they run for office. They run for the presidency because they don't know if that opportunity is going to come again. That's what we've seen with Kellen Moore. Byron Leftwich is another one where it's like, if you don't take advantage of your chance and you screw up the next year, you might not have that coaching opportunity. So him making a lateral move, maybe he's looking at it as, well, maybe Staley's only got one more year, so I can just hop in there and be the coach. Maybe that's what he's thinking, or maybe it opens up something new for him. But yeah, just a lateral move for Kellen Moore. I thought he was going to, seek a head coaching position.
Yeah, for sure. There was definitely some interest. I know that he interviewed for the Panthers at one point or another. They end up going with Frank Reich. But obviously it means really good things for the Chargers because that offense was absolutely stagnant. But, I mean, I would have rather had Kellen Moore as a head coach hire than stick with Brandon Staley as the head coach and bring in Kellen Moore as the OC. But if you can have both in the building, can't complain about that. But other coordinator hires that were of note, Vic Fangio, former head coach for the Broncos for a while, defensive mastermind. He ends up going to the Dolphins on a 3-year deal. I believe it's the biggest coordinator contract in the NFL right now. But he's headed to the Dolphins to be their DC. And speaking of Dolphins coaches, former head coach Brian Flores, he's headed to your very own Vikings as the DC. What are you thinking about that, man?
Just keep the distractions in the past. That's my best way to put it. He did pretty well for the Steelers this year. I thought that their defense was a lot better than what some people, aka you, might have thought initially going into the season. But this is a defense that was arguably the worst in football. Ed Donatel was absolute shit. It was just a terrible hire for the Vikings. So I don't think it can get much worse. And I'm hoping he brings in a little bit of a new spark. They've got guys like Harrison Smith and Eric Kendricks, that are getting up there in age. Pat Peterson, even Zadarius Smith and Danielle Hunter. Dalvin Tomlinson is a free agent now. So there's going to be some pieces that you've got to replace and hold on to. But in my opinion, the secondary has got to get better, especially from the cornerback position. Excuse me. You drafted Andrew Booth. He did okay. He was serviceable. Cam Dancer got hurt. He was playing pretty well, but you're probably going to lose Pat Pete or Tomlinson. You might use one or if not both of those. And you get Lewis Seam back, which is good. We'll see what happens. I'm not holding my breath, on this Vikings defense. This is a team that centered around the offense, and I don't see it changing. But, if you can get to a top 20 defense, the Vikings could be making some noise next year.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I've been a Brian Flores fan if you get rid of all the distractions, like if you focus exclusively on his ability to coach football. Like, he's a pretty fucking good head coach. I mean, he shouldn't have, on paper, been fired in the first place from Miami. But yeah, so he goes from being the linebackers coach for Pittsburgh to now being the DC for Minnesota. Maybe gets his hat in the ring for another head coach job like in a year or two. But we'll see. Nate Hackett, the guy who was graciously fired by the Broncos, he ends up going to the Jets as their offensive coordinator, which I don't know what to make of it because Nate Hackett was so terrible this past season that I don't know if I would have hired him as an OC, even though he's coming off of a head coaching job. It was just so downright terrible. But, we'll see how that works out. And then Bill O'Brien finally makes his way back to the NFL from coaching at Bama. He's now the Patriots offensive coordinator. So besides who you've already talked about a little bit, who you liking as the sneaky hire here, the best sneaky hire?
I don't know if I'd say it's a sneaky hire, but the best hire out of this group, in my opinion, is DeMeco Ryans. They gave him a 6-year deal probably for a reason. This guy is legit. You saw how good this San Fran D is. It's going to take a year, maybe 2 years. If you can get a quarterback, this team's got some promise. They've got some young pieces on the defensive side. They drafted Stingley, Petrie's there as well. I think that if they can get another couple of pieces here and there, especially with the salary cap increasing, this is a team they can win their division. They really can because the Colts are not great. I don't know what they're doing. The Titans, have they already hit their peak? Have they already gone past where they're always going to rely on Henry, but their quarterback situation is something that I don't think is going to be very formidable. The Jags are obviously on the up and up, and I think that they're going to be the team that does win this division for the next couple of years. But I think the Texans, 2-3 years down the road, we could be talking about them as a playoff team, maybe competing for the division. I don't know if we'll see them compete, for that AFC crown just because of how many good freaking teams are in the AFC and how many good quarterbacks there are. But yeah, I really like this D'Amico Ryans hire, and I think he's a home run slam dunk hire, and he's going to turn this franchise around.
For sure. I put it wrong by saying sneaky. I mean, not any of these hires are sneaky, but yeah, I definitely like D'Amico Ryans a lot. I mean, he was probably the clear cut, besides Sean Payton, he was the clear cut best head coaching candidate out there, the most highly sought after. So yeah, really solid start for the Texans, who hopefully bring in a quarterback in this draft to kind of propel this organization in the future. But excuse me, the guy I want to talk about a little bit, I feel like this hire is being overlooked for sure, is Bill O'Brien being brought in again as the Patriots offensive coordinator. Where he's been for the last 2 years, he's been at Bama. It's fucking Alabama, so their offense is never going to be too bad. But in 2022, they had the 11th most yards per game in the FBS. In 2021, it was 7th most yards per game in FBS, while leading Bryce Young to a Heisman Trophy. So not too shabby for sure in college ball. And if you look back at his head coaching tenure in Houston, it was not as bad as everybody wants to say it was. Like, he was fired after a 4-game skid to start the 2020 season when he became the head coach and the GM, and he made one of the worst trades of all time with David Johnson and D-Hop. But that's neither here nor there. His GM ability, I cannot speak to that, but his coaching ability is another story. He has only one full losing season. From the course between 2014 and 2020 as the head coach for the Texans. He went 4-12 in 2017. But besides that, he had a winning season every single year. And he made the playoffs 4 out of 6 full seasons that he was the head coach for the Texans. And he's got some history with Belichick. He worked with the Pats offense from 2007 to 2011, where he eventually worked himself up as the OC in 2011. And they made the Super Bowl that year, the Pats did, and they had the second best regular season offense that year on a yards per game basis. So I'll just finish the thought off with his shittiness at GM with Houston overshadowed his coaching ability. Like, he was probably he'll go down as one of the worst GMs of all time. The 0-4 season that he had as GM. But his coaching ability is another thing to talk about. I think this is a great hire. I think he will be eventually another head coach, or he will get another head coaching job in the near future.
Well, and I'm pretty sure it puts him back with Mac Jones, who he was his OC while at Bama. So you get that, you rekindle that flame. Maybe it ends up doing something. I mean, as long as Belichick's there, they're going to be competing for a playoff spot every year. Unfortunately, they're in a division right now where the Bills and Dolphins look to be better, at least on paper, and the Jets are coming along as well. So it's a very, very tough division that they're in.
Yeah, for sure. But with Belichick at the helm, anything can happen. So we'll see how that shakes out in New England. But yeah, those are some of the notable hires that we've seen so far in the offseason. But let's move on to a little bit more of offseason news before we sign off here. And that is the Derek Carr phenomenon that we're seeing right now. So rumor had it he was going to be traded from the Raiders, but he kind of basically refused that, and because he does have a no trade clause in his contract, so he's going to end up being released, which means that he's going to be owed all of that money from the Raiders, which will be interesting to watch that unfold. They might have to just backload it until 2035, but he is now basically a free agent. I mean, I don't know if anybody saw his comment on the first day of the Pro Bowl shenanigans where he had the AFC hat on and he didn't have a team on there, and that was a laughing point. And he was like, I think it was Ryan Clark asked him, "Have you ever been this hot in Vegas?" And he was like, "Well, I don't know. I'm probably going to be playing somewhere else." So, and that went around the Twitterverse for a while. But yeah, we'll see where Derek Carr ends up. This past week, he met with the Saints after receiving approval from the Raiders. what are we thinking as best fits for Derek Carr, man?
Seems like the Saints is the team right now that he's going to end up going to. And with their offensive line, if they can get Michael Thomas back, him and Chris Olave and Alvin Kamara, he's got the resources there, and their defense is really good. And if you're the Saints, this makes sense because you're in that win now mode, and this is a guy that will come right in and hopefully propel you to that next level. The other thing, the division is shit. The Falcons are not good. The Bucks are in complete rebuild. And the Panthers, who knows what we're going to get out of them. So keeping all that in mind, you go out and you get a guy like Derek Carr, you're right away putting yourself in conversation to win this division. And then the NFC as a whole is just not great. I mean, the Eagles look great. The 49ers look great. After that, I mean, Dallas is there. But then it's like the Vikings and the Packers, and it's a total toss-up at that point. You got to imagine the Rams will be better. We'll see what happens with Kyler and his recovery from surgery. But overall, if they go out and they get Derek Carr, I think it sets them up really well. So I really like the fit with the Saints. The Jets make sense, but I don't know if the Jets, if they get him, if that's going to put them at the top of their division. I just don't think it does. The Colts, I don't know what the Colts are doing. Redskins makes sense. It does make sense, but I think they're going to go with a younger quarterback. I think they're going to go with an AR-15, maybe see what Sam Howell's got. I don't think that they're going to keep doing this. Oh, we're going to go out and get a veteran quarterback carousel like the Colts are doing, where we're just going to see how this is going to go every single year.
Yeah, that's the reason why I don't think he ends up with the Colts or the Skins, because they know how this whole rigmarole works out, especially the Colts. Like, I mean, they've been doing this the past 3 years. They know how it's going. They've got to rock with a young quarterback in the draft this year. And as far as the Commanders go, we seem to be pretty damn committed to Sam Howell. Like, Ron Rivera just had another interview the other day where he said Sam Howell is more than likely QB1. And with the world that we're in today, that's pretty much a guarantee that Sam Howell's going to be QB1 to start the season. So I like to see that. I like to see, like, we need to develop a quarterback. I mean, we haven't really tried to give it a shot at developing a quarterback since Dwayne Haskins, rest in peace. So I really think we need to take another stab at developing a quarterback. And I think Sam Howell's going to be that guy. So I don't see us going, repeating possibly the Carson Wentz experience and going after Derek Carr. I don't see us doing that. I do think Derek Carr is significantly better than Carson Wentz. I've been an advocate for Derek Carr for a long time. And I'm not going to lie, did look pretty snappy at the Pro Bowl, man. Like,
in that flag football game, yeah, a lot to take away from
that. All right. I'm a fan of the flag football. That's the only thing. You can scratch everything else. Like, Peyton was legitimately pissed after losing that game, and that made me, like, I was laughing. Like, his whole entire face was red with the veins popping out. Like, and it was as bad as competitive as flag football usually is, Like, I was with it. I know you fucking hate it. But, yeah, so Derek Carr, I don't see it for the Commanders, don't see it for the Colts. But when it comes down to the Saints and Jets, the Saints, I don't know why. I never really thought of them needing a quarterback before, but it seems like a perfect fit. Like, they've got Michael Thomas there for a while. I know they just lost Jarvis Landry, but they're going to bring somebody in to help out with that. They got Olave. They got the offensive line. They're pretty much set to go with Derek Carr. But I wouldn't. The Jets right now lead the odds according to Vegas, and I wouldn't be surprised at all if he ends up with the Jets, because the Jets have continually.
They are a quarterback away,
and they have continually tried to develop quarterbacks and have struck out and failed every single time. So I think they might try to take a stab at a solidified starting quarterback in the NFL and get Derek Carr in there after. So it'll be interesting to watch.
Real quick, last point. Patrick Mahomes just won MVP. Dak Prescott won Walter Payton Man of the Year. Real quick, Patrick Mahomes, what he's done since becoming an NFL starter 5 years ago. 2-time MVP, 5 AFC title games, which he's hosted all of them, 3 Super Bowl appearances, 1 Super Bowl MVP so far, 3-time All-Pro, 5 Pro Bowls, 2-time passing touchdowns leader, an NFL record 5,614 total yards in a season. It's a Hall of Fame career already. I mean, it's absolutely ridiculous what the guy's done. And if he gets this, it's just a cherry on top.
Well, who won Comeback Player of the Year? That was really the only one that was a toss-up.
I'm not sure. I can check that really quickly.
Yeah, to recap tonight,
But
Garrett Wilson, Offensive Rookie of the Year, Sauce Gardner, Defensive Rookie of the Year, Nick Bosa, Defensive Player of the Year, J. Jeff, Offensive Player of the Year, Dayball won Coach of the Year. What am I missing?
Geno Smith, Comeback Player of the Year.
There it is. Okay. It was that or Saquon, or, I mean, it really could have been.
Somebody wrote back.
Sir, that's what I'm talking about. I'm glad that Geno won it.
Somebody finally wrote back.
I've always been a Geno fan ever since West Virginia days. But
for sure.
All right, man. Well, that just about does it for our Super Bowl preview episode and recapping some of the offseason moves that have happened so far. We hope that all of your parlays hit and you end up being a millionaire by Monday, especially if you bet on the waste.
Overtime. I'm telling you, overtime is going to happen.
All right. Yes, you heard it here first. Overtime's going to happen. Take a look at our props that we made earlier in the episode. Throw it together for a nasty parlay. And have yourself a nice Monday swimming in your cash. But, yeah, we will catch you next week, probably for an episode recapping the Super Bowl. And the offseason will really start to roll next week once the Super Bowl is concluded. We'll have plenty to talk about. But until then, enjoy the Super Bowl. Catch you next week. Peace.